नाजरीन, अफगानिस्तान के अंदर भारतीय मुदाखलत, इस मौजू पर बात करने के लिए बैनुल अक़वामी ताल्लुकात के माहिर एस रजा रत्नाम स्कूल ऑफ इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स के प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर जॉन हैरिसन हमारे साथ टेलीफोन लाइन पे मौजूद हैं। वेलकम टू द प्रोग्राम जॉन हैरिसन। Professor Dr. John Harrison, my first question is that India is increasing its role in Afghanistan. On one hand, in India itself, there is a lot of poverty, and we have got the reports that dozens and hundreds of people have committed suicide. Their agricultural sector is in bad shape. On the other hand, India is investing $1.2 billion in Afghanistan. So what do you think? Is it just humanitarian aid, or it is something different? It has something to do with Pakistan?
Well, I think that there may be a number of reasons, but I think the primary one is that India does recognize, very much like Pakistan does, that stability in Afghanistan will benefit both countries. So that India is in the position where they have resources that they are capable of deploying in order to help the Afghans. So I think that's a very important thing to do. Are there strategic interests? Of course, but I think the primary motivation here is to try to bring stability to that very important country.
Well, Pakistan is looking at the development when India is interfering, or India is investing in Afghanistan. Pakistan has its genuine concerns. Do you think that these concerns are justified?
Certainly, there are many people who will have concerns, but I think that these concerns can be overstated, because I think what Pakistan and India are both trying to do is bring stability to that very important region. So I wouldn't. So I think, in general terms, that it is for the benefit of the Afghan people.
Okay, it can be in the benefit of Afghan people, right? Because right now, as you said, that it is in a humanitarian ground, that various development projects which are being funded by India. Now, the next question is that India is financially in a not very good position. And second is that there are reports that India has its consulates working in Afghanistan which are spying Pakistan. Pakistan border in Balochistan province, in northwest frontier province. You must have heard about those activities and Pakistan's allegations. So you think that India should alleviate those concerns and those suspicions?
Well, I think that unfortunately, both countries have a long history of being engaged in difficult situations with each other. So I think that it is important for both parties to be cognizant of the fact that there may be multiple reasons going on for what's happening. But I think making accusations is not always productive, particularly when Afghanistan has so many very important needs, that if there are ways of developing those and ways of meeting those needs, I think they need to be fully explored.
All right. So now I want your expert opinion on presidential election in Afghanistan. How do you see the development in Afghanistan? Yesterday there were presidential election in Afghanistan, and despite threats from the Taliban to disrupt the whole process, but still it is the reports are coming from especially from Western media that the turnout was fairly good. So what do you think these elections, how these are going to fare for Afghanistan's democratic dispensation?
I think it's important that these elections happen, and I think if nothing else that comes out of it other than that there was a peaceful election and that the Afghan population, despite all of the enormous challenges, both security and logistics, still took part in this, I think it's very important. And I think that we need to recognize that there is a very potent enemy in the Taliban. They will do everything they can to undermine the legitimacy of the government and of these elections, and that if the Afghan people turned out in the numbers that they appear to have, I think that's a fairly good endorsement of the democratic process and the peaceful democratic process that is underway in Afghanistan. It's going to be a very long and difficult road ahead. There's no question about that. But I think this is a very solid, positive first step in that direction.
Well, the Taliban influence and the insurgency, the latest BBC report suggested that out of 368 districts in Afghanistan, 134 districts are not under the Kabul administration's control. So in the given circumstances, do you think that these elections will have some credibility?
Listen, it will be very difficult, particularly in the environment that they are operating in, to get the type of turnout that they would have liked, I'm sure. But I think the fact that this has gone on, the fact that the Afghan people, where they could, did turn out, that it took a fairly substantial effort by the Taliban to make sure that voters didn't turn out, I think that shows that if given their druthers, the population of Afghanistan would have turned out to vote. And I think that's more of an indictment on the Taliban and their terror tactics than anything else.
Well, the latest survey report published in American press and it was quoted by Associated Press, that now 51% of American people, they think that the war in Afghanistan is unnecessary. So it is reported that in 1 month the figure rose to 6 points. Now it was 46, now it is 51% of the people who are opposing effort in Afghanistan. So while the public opinion in America and the western parts of the world, Western Europe and the NATO allies, there is increasing disenchantment from this effort going on in Afghanistan. So in your opinion, what do you think, what are the prospects of withdrawal of America and NATO from Afghanistan?
That's really the critical question, and it's one that concerns me greatly. I think that our NATO partners will most likely be pulling out, and I think they have said that they're going to reduce their forces come this fall. They were going to be there through the elections to make sure that they were conducted safely. And I think that's certainly the wrong message to be sending, that the West is not committed to this fight. Additionally, certainly in the U.S. there are concerns. Casualty figures have been going up in large measure because the strategy that is being implemented now is one that is more aggressive. And it is designed to try to not only drive the Taliban out of areas they control, but also to make sure that the territory that is taken is held. So this is going to put American forces at risk. And I can understand the pain and the angst that the American public has. But I think ultimately the American public understands that the war in Afghanistan is the most important element of the war on terror. And that to lose in Afghanistan is something that is just incomprehensible and will do major damage to not only U.S. prestige, but also U.S. homeland security. That said, I think the message here is that the American public's patience is beginning to wear thin, so that the clock is running and it's not going to be an open-ended commitment. My ultimate concern is that the current U.S. strategy is designed simply to put a surge in place, make sure that the Taliban have been pushed back, and that the phrase I would use would be the U.S. might be looking for a peace with honor. If that is the case, and certainly President Obama has not said this, but if that is the ultimate